first speaker is Seleste Albury. She's a engineer in Kronos, and she's going to be telling us all about her digital dream. And she's going to be doing it from the perspective of the title of her talk, which is Digital Exclusion. So I'd like to welcome Seleste to the stage. Feel free to turn your camera on and feel free to give us your talk on my digital dream.
Hello, everyone. My name is Seleste Albury, and I'm an anomaly, something that deviates from the standard, normal, or expected. And I shouldn't have to be one. My friends perceive me as the exception to the rule, the outlier, and they praise me for being that, a pioneer, but I don't want to be. I wish I had the same advantages I had to become one. And I believe those same advantages can be evenly distributed if we're able to understand the root cause and address it. I think people that come from my situation are often tasked with the duty to live up to that expectation they set for themselves, as well as the perception of others. But we hardly task ourselves to make it easier for the people coming after us. Growing up, I was expected to do what I like to call girly things, like cheerleading, dance, ballet, even beauty pageants. But deep down inside, I loved computers. My father taught me how to write my first program when I was 8. And from that moment, I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I never imagined how hard it would be for me to get here. The obstacles I would have to face and the double glass ceilings I'd have to break. When my father died, he left me with the code, but he did not prepare me for what it would take to use it. I signed up for a computer class in high school. I thought it'd be the first step in achieving my dream, but instead, my school put me in a home ec class. When I got to the class, I saw ovens and cooking utensils. Kind of crazy when you're expecting computers, right? So I went up to the teacher and I told her there was a mistake, and her reply to me was, "No mistake was made. Girls don't take computer classes." She called the principal because my response to that wasn't very ladylike. And he walked right up to me and he said, "Oh, you're the girl whose father worked at IBM. Let's see if the apple didn't fall too far from the tree." He was my ticket into this career, but what did my father's career have to do with me simply taking a class? Interesting enough, they put me in band class to play the flute, and decades later, I still can't play the flute. I can't even whistle. So why was computers different? My digital dream is to end digital exclusion and segregation. In my case, I was able to overcome, but that's what made me an anomaly, something that deviates from what is standard, normal, or expected. But shouldn't it be standard, normal, and expected for someone who looks like me and other ethnic minorities to have the same fighting chance to pursue a career in computer science just like their counterparts? I shouldn't be an anomaly, the exception, the outlier. I should be status quo. In 2017, only 8.9% of ethnic minorities received a degree in computer science, opposed to 55% of their peers. Why would you think you'd be successful in a career if only 8.9% of the people who look like you were able to? There was a study done in 2014. They polled large tech companies such as Google, Facebook, Twitter about diversity in the workplace. Shockingly, they all had 1% and no higher than 3% ethnic minorities in their workplace. 5 years later, they repeated the study, and it only increased by 0.8%. Looking back on what it took for me to become an anomaly, I came up with 3 factors: representation, education, and support. Cultural representation is key for students to truly connect with computer science. They must see themselves and their community reflected not only in the class material, but the people who look like them, who grew up like them. This can be done through simple things like putting up posters of people who share their background and who have careers in computer science. Introduce textbooks, highlight people like myself, because if you can see it, you can be it. My cultural representation was my father. With education, my high school provided an opportunity to take a computer class. Should I probably take in the home ec class? Yes, because I can't cook. But a lot of underprivileged schools don't even have a choice. A good way to foster this is to have things like after-school programs, summer programs, also invest more funds into these schools so we can provide the basic necessities to allow these underrepresented kids to explore the field. I have some ideas like start a teacher exchange program where we could send teachers from other schools as volunteers to these schools so they can share their knowledge. And this can all be done while we wait for the appropriate funding to provide such a class. Another idea is to invest in summer coding camps. This is a great way to get students interested in computer science. Summer camps like this may cost more than some students can afford, but that's where my next factor comes into play. Support. Support is the foundation and the backbone in ending digital exclusion and segregation. Without it, there is no representation, and education may fail. Support will need to be not only physical, but monetary as well. This can be resolved by large tech companies such as Amazon, who had a 30% increase in revenue between 2017 and 2018 alone. They could take this opportunity and invest in underrepresented groups, since they've already tasked themselves to improving diversity in the workplace. One place to start is to recruit and provide internships for historically Black colleges and universities, which they are currently failing to do so. According to the Washington Post, Google used a ranking system to set budgets and priorities for hiring new engineers. Universities like MIT were in the elite category. And according to former and current Google employees, the system was applied to other schools, specifically HBCUs, but they were seen as less priority. Barry Williams, she's an advocate for diversity in the Silicon Valley, said, companies are reluctant to broaden the schools they recruit from to include historically Black colleges and universities, because it always comes down to some semblance of seeing it as lowering the bar. When she worked for Facebook, she said she's seen candidates get passed over because they attended an HBCU. HBCUs are trying to address the need of minority representation in the computer field. 25% of ethnic minorities graduate with computer science degrees come from HBCUs. 8 of them are among the top 20 institutions to award the most science and engineering degrees to Black graduates from 2008 to 2012. They are the institute of origin for almost 30% of Black graduates with doctorates in science and engineering, but as I mentioned before, they only make up 3.8% of the workforce, and I think we can safely say all of them are anomalies of their community. I've thrown out a lot of statistics. However, statistics only provide a visual representation that highlight what ethnic minorities are up against. But the issue with statistics is that they're a superficial picture of a more complex situation. Statistics don't address the underlying problems like systemic inequalities, making it harder for people of color to not only graduate with a degree in computer science, but also pursue a career in it. And I believe that is attributed to underrepresentation and lack of support. The other problem with statistics, it doesn't say why. Having numerical figures of this disparity is great, but we're never told the why behind it. In IT, when there's a major incident, we have to fill out what we call an RCA, a root cause analysis. An RCA is used to identify the cause of a problem and address it instead of just treating the symptoms. In this analysis, you have to answer at least 5 whys the incident occurred and what we can do to prevent it from occurring again. So let's explore what an RCA would look like to end digital exclusion and segregation. So first, we need to define our problem. Our problem is that there are only 3.8% of ethnic minorities represented in large tech companies. Our first why. These companies are not investing in this underrepresented group. Why? There seems to be a hesitation and focus of hiring this group. Why? The pool of these groups do not produce enough graduates in the field. Why? They have limited access or no access to education and IT. Why? Because they attend schools that either do not have enough resources or do not provide classes in computer science at all, or they attend schools like HBCUs that are seen as lesser than. Why? Because they have no support to help invest in or build interest in such a field. So our root cause is there's a lack of representation, both culturally and community, to help foster interest and facilitate growth in the field of computer science. When you have all these whys stacked against you, how can you achieve? How can you pursue careers? How can you follow and how can you uplift others to follow in your footsteps? The effect of this is greater than you can think because you also overlook the vast amount of talent as well as ideas that we're missing out on if we were only able to tap into these resources. They can incorporate their native problems to find native solutions, and this will potentially spark interest and contribute to the advancement of human civilization. I'm sure of you have seen the movie Hidden Figures. Without the help of these intelligent women, I do not believe NASA would have been able to progress as far as they did without them. So can you imagine the vast amount of talent we have yet to cultivate, but we cannot because we keep them hidden? I said in the beginning, I'm an anomaly, something that is not normal or expected. But that's because I had the representation, education, and the necessary support to overcome the many obstacles other ethnic minorities have no fighting chance to achieve. My digital dream is to eradicate anomalies, make it a standard opposed to an exception, make it status quo. And to do that, all we have to do is provide the necessary support, invest in their education, which will provide representation to end digital exclusion and segregation. I'm an anomaly, but with your help, I don't have to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Celeste. Thank you for that talk.